on Ukraine and Russia.
Yes.
On Friday, Russian court extended arrest of Ukrainian citizens who had been detained in Crimea in May this year. Today, the Ukrainian government called the international community to condemn these actions. Do you have any statement on this issue?
Wait, I'm sorry, can you repeat the question? I want to be sure I've got it.
Yeah,
right.
on Friday, Russian court extended arrest of Ukrainian citizens who had been detained in Crimea in May this year. Today, the government of Ukraine called the international community to condemn this action. Do you have any statement?
So you're talking, though, about the Russian authorities extending the detention of Ukrainian citizens detained in Crimea.
Yep.
The United States does not recognize the attempted annexation of Crimea by Russia, and so naturally we would oppose any such steps such as you've described. Now, I'm not familiar with the particular details of that decision or that order, but certainly we support the territorial integrity and sovereignty of Ukraine, and we would call on any Ukrainian citizens who were detained in Crimea during Russia's invasion to be released. So that would be our position on that.
Do you have any other statements on the situation in Ukraine?
Well, you will have noticed that there was recently an exchange of detained persons between Ukrainian forces and the Russia-backed separatists. We believe that these exchanges, along with the decrease in violence, are positive steps, and they are also an opportunity to advance the prospects for a lasting political solution consistent with the Minsk agreements. We would also highlight that as a signatory to the Minsk agreements, Russia is committed to release those hostages that it holds. And so in that regard, we continue to call on Russia to release Ukrainian Member of Parliament Nadia Savchenko and film producer Oleg Sentsov. We understand that Ms. Savchenko is suffering health problems as a result of her detention. And more broadly, we call on Russia to use its leverage and influence with the separatists that it supports to implement the commitments of the Minsk agreements immediately, including returning control of the international border to Ukraine and working towards a peaceful resolution.
So,
Leslie. Oh, yes, ma'am.
well, I just did you consider these people to be hostages?
Nadia Savchenko and Oleg Sentsov?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Last week, the Ukrainian parliament voted on removing the non-aligned status.
Mm-hmm.
There was some brief comment at the time from here, but today President Poroshenko has signed that
He signed
law.
it, yes.
So now that it is official, he didn't veto it, in other words. Do you have anything more to say about this and what it might mean for tension between not just Russia and Ukraine, but between Russia and the West?
Well, our policy on the future of NATO enlargement hasn't changed since this first came up in the briefing last week. The door is open, and countries that are willing and able to contribute to the security of the Euro-Atlantic area are welcome to apply for membership, and any application will be considered on its merits. So we support the open door policy. But NATO invites countries when they are ready, and any decision is one for NATO and Ukraine to make. This is a process that takes some time, but it's a decision that Ukraine and NATO should make, free from any outside interference.
Does the United States government, as a leading member of NATO, have a position on whether Ukraine is now or will be in the very near future ready to join the alliance?
Well, there are a variety of criteria, some quite detailed. I don't think we've got a scorecard right now to share, but clearly, it involves a lot of measures, and so the United States, along with our NATO partners, will continue working with Ukraine and it's Ukraine's sovereign decision what kind of a relationship it wants to pursue with NATO.
Does the U.S. government on its own, aside from NATO, have any kind of criteria or requirement that a country applying for membership in NATO that is in a situation where part of it, you say part of it is illegally occupied, right? In this case, Crimea.
Right.
Is that a hindrance to, in the eyes of the U.S. government, to membership? Because it would seem to me that if Ukraine did apply and get in, while you still say that Crimea has been illegally taken over by Russia, that would put them, or you put NATO almost instantly in a state of war. No.
No, I understand your question. I'm not aware of any legal restriction. Happy to look and see if there's more to be.
Well, not a NATO restriction. I'm just wondering if the
No, I
U.S.
said
government.
a legal
right,
restriction.
but not a NATO one. I'm looking for what the U.S. government would think about that as a member of NATO.
Right, I understand. Okay, Leslie.
Also sticking on Ukraine, you probably saw Poroshenko's statement today of talks on January the 15th with the leaders of Germany, Russia, and France. Is the U.S. going to be part of those discussions? I believe that he has invited specifically the president, but do you know if anybody else, as far as the diplomatic side?
I'm not familiar with whether there has been such an invitation, so I'll have to confirm details and get back to you on that. Okay, yes?